Hello and welcome back to the My First Marathon podcast, where we interview runners in all stages of their running careers about their first marathon experiences to prove that anyone can run a marathon. My name is Taylor, and today's runner started running 10 years ago with her high school cross country team and fell in love with the idea of a sport where it's you versus you. She held on to that throughout college and beyond, and continuing to run 5Ks and eventually working her way up to her first half marathon. She looped in all of her coworkers to train together for that first half and was able to realize that having someone to train with helps so much with motivation and consistency. Eventually, her friend and her decided they were going to run the Charlotte Marathon together, but coming off of an injury from that half and having to skip some runs over the summer when the weather was less than ideal, she didn't have the training cycle she was hoping for. Nonetheless, she ran the race anyways and ended up building so much confidence along the way. So, without further ado, let's jump right in. Please welcome Theresa. So much for coming on the show. Super excited to break down your story. We're both North Carolinians. I know that you ran the Charlotte Marathon, so I'm super excited to hear about your journey getting there and the Charlotte Marathon. But first, just thank you for coming on. Excited to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Cool. Well, let's start from the beginning. I know you've been running for, I think I saw like 10 years, so you've been in the space for a while. How did this all start? Was running your first form of movement? Like, how did we get to this point?
Yeah. Well, I started everything kind of in high school. Before that, I really hated exercise. Like, I did not want to do it at all. My mom did a lot of athletics when she was growing up. So she kind of put me, into all of the teams. I played soccer, mainly soccer. I really enjoyed that. But then starting in my senior year, so 10 years ago now, I started doing cross country and track. And it just really stuck with me because it was finally like an individual sport that I tried. And it was, more me versus my team, me within a team. So yeah, that's kind of where I went into running, and I really stuck with that. It was really fun.
Cool. So you had the team sport experience, which I feel like everybody that comes on the show that came from a team sport, it's like running is punishment. So it's like a weird relationship coming from that side. So what do you feel like changed, or what did you like about running once you switched from like a team sport to more of an individual sport?
Yeah, like I said, it was really like a switch that really just mentally helped me a lot to have the individual aspect. So I always felt like if I made a mistake on a team, it was like my fault that we lost or something. So when I was just competing against myself, it was just way better for myself and like how to get better. It just was me versus me. And it was also more of like a challenge, I think, for me in like, it's constantly running versus, in soccer, you might be standing for a second, watching
Sure.
and then sprinting for a second. And that continuous movement was really nice for me. And I also really enjoyed like the 5K distance that we mainly ran in cross country. So that was really nice challenge, around 30 minutes of exercise versus like longer than that on teams. So that's what really stuck with me.
Cool. Yeah, makes sense. And then, so yeah, the 5K distance I love as well. How did you transition from running 5Ks in cross country to thinking about like bigger distances from there?
Yeah, it actually took quite a while. So once I really focused on the 5Ks, competing in that, after that, I knew how to train that. So when I was doing it, throughout college, that's what I stuck with. I liked the 30-minute about exercise. It was quick and easy. So I stuck with that. Really, I'm not quite sure when exactly I tried to run further. It was definitely somewhere around the end of college, slash then going into the years after when I did my master's. And then I was starting to think like even just like 7K, 8K, that was already super cool for me. And then I don't know when I hit my first 10K, but that was really just awesome. I was like, I felt so good afterwards. And then I kind of stuck with that. I mainly still did 5Ks. And then when I moved, I did my master's in the Netherlands. And so it was also really nice and flat there.
Yeah.
So that also encouraged me to kind of go further because it was really flat. And then when I moved back to the States, I started, talking to more people that have done long distance. There's a really good friend that I worked with who also actually ran the marathon with me, and who also ran the half marathon before that. She had run a half marathon, so I was like, okay, I can actually, have a friend with, to train it. And that's when I really started to think more about long distance.
Cool. Yeah, it's helpful to have somebody that's like the extra motivator with you or to go through the trenches with you. Was this her first marathon too that
Absolutely.
she would be training for?
Yeah.
Cool. Had you thought about like running a half marathon before that, or did your mind go straight to I'm gonna run the full?
No, I definitely considered the half. I
Okay.
definitely never thought that I would be running a full. The
Yeah.
half was, already super cool for me. And I actually got a group of people together from the restaurant that I worked at. It was about 5 of us who then started training for the half. We kind
Cool.
of had that challenge in mind together. I want to say, and we did that at the end of 2023. So probably within that year, I just I had that in mind. And then when I met my friend, she was like, I kind of also want to do half marathon, and so that kind of, you know, kick-started everything.
Yeah, good for you getting so many people into it
It
with
was
your
fun.
restaurant crew. And yeah, I love
Mhm.
that. Cool. And then, yeah, what were you looking into in terms of like training resources at the time, if you remember, since you were training with a group? I imagine it's a little bit different. You guys don't know if you guys were all like trying to train the same or together. Like, what did all that look like?
Yeah, so we did train the same. So the way we all worked at the same restaurant, so we all had the same day off. It was Mondays.
Mm,
So we started training around 5 weeks probably before the half, and we started slow. Like we just ran, once a week that those Mondays. So we started with 3 and then 5 miles and then around 8. And then we did actually run a half the week before,
mm,
which in hindsight might have been a mistake. um, so we didn't really have much of a plan, to be honest. We were just like, we're gonna run, we're gonna have fun with it. Really, we just want to like do it, you know.
yeah.
But we did think about, we had that in mind also when we exercised on our own. We had our own little things going on the side, and my friend and I also did some runs together beyond just the group runs.
Gotcha. So that was like your long run crew. Is the
Exactly.
restaurant crew? Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Cool. Makes sense. How were you feel? I know you had a little bit of a running background. I'm not sure about your friend that if she had like a running background as well, but you, I imagine, had a good base that you were working off of, or did you feel like you were starting over when you started training? Like, where were you at in running when you started training for that half?
Yeah, I think I did have that baseline still just because I did, exercise on my own a lot.
Hmm.
And then that team aspect came in once, I met all the people at the restaurant. Um, but yeah, it was definitely still a challenge. Like I said earlier, I hadn't done much of the long distance. Like,
Yeah.
mm, you know, probably not more than ever like 7 miles, 8 miles. So when I got close to that, it was really nice to have the team, because I felt like I couldn't really do it on my own. I didn't really have the motivation or, having that team to drive me to go forward.
Sure.
Um, so that was really helpful, even though I did have that baseline, and we all kind of did. Like I said, my friend had ran a half before,
Hmm.
and then I got my boss involved, and he actually had run Ironmans before. So we all kind of, but he hadn't done it in a long time too. So we were all kind of like starting sort of from like a bottom and then going up, but we all had like a good baseline.
I love that. That's
Hmm.
cool. So yeah, so when you were training for this half, like coming from your cross country background, what were some of the things that you were noticing, like about your body or how you felt, or like anything difference wise between running 5Ks to starting to run like longer distances?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is different. I also needed to be really careful about like getting the nutrition afterwards. I kind of struggled with, I knew how I felt after the 5K, but then I realized the 10K just takes so much more out of you. You have to like eat more afterwards, and I wasn't really used to that. Or even before, like a lot of times I would just go, in the morning, kind of fasted on the 5Ks. And I was like, okay, I probably shouldn't do that with the 10Ks,
Yeah,
and kind of did them later in the afternoon or something like that. Um, so that was really different, probably from the nutritional aspect, especially. Um, but then yeah, of course, you're putting more effort in, and then you also have to start thinking about what you bring on your runs. That was really
Hmm.
important for me to learn, especially while training for the half, because you have to kind of keep yourself going for if you're running for a long time, um, to bring water on my runs and everything like that. So that definitely had to change from what I was doing before.
Yeah. Not
Hmm.
to go like too far back, but I'm curious about like in cross country, in college cross country, I guess specifically. What do they teach you about nutrition? Do they teach you about pre fuel, post fuel? Like, do they teach you any of that, or are you kind of on your own to learn that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I was definitely, I mean, it was actually high school cross country, so
Mm,
it had been like
high
a
school, yeah,
long time ago. I just remembered like, eating like the mini bagels beforehand, or
yeah,
they were just kind of focusing on the carb aspect, bananas and mini bagels before the race. They didn't really talk much about after, but I also was very much in the back of the pack, so I might have not really paid attention that much to that. Because I wasn't like as focused on the cross country
yeah.
than
You were
like
trying to win.
people. Right. I mean, they were
Yeah,
trying to train for like college and so,
yeah, yeah.
so they kind of probably focused more on getting those athletes sorted. Um,
Sure.
so that's all I really remember. And after that, I was kind of on my own and just did whatever.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
misheard. For some reason I thought you said college, but yeah, high school I can imagine even less resources for that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But they were at least like I guess it's good that they were at least teaching you about you need to put something in your body. So that I suppose is
Absolutely.
positive. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. So yeah, back to the half marathon. What half marathon did you choose? Did you guys pick one together? Like how did you guys choose the one that you did end up running?
Yeah, it's actually local as well. So it
Cool.
was in the little like town outside of Charlotte that I live in.
Yeah.
So it was just like a friendly kind of neighborhood half marathon. And I think that was perfect for all of us to kind of start low, like, low key.
Yeah.
And it wasn't far for us to drive and all of that. So we didn't have all of those things we needed to think about. So that's why we chose kind of a more local and also low key, because we were like, I don't know how this is going to work. Um, so it was nice to have just a chill experience. That's kind of what we wanted.
Yeah, a local race is great. I think I always tell people for like local races, there's so many good ones that you can find like actually decent crowd support and not have to worry about any race logistics. So like, yeah, do your
Yeah,
research and see if you can find a little fun one that people actually come out to and like support because those are always the best.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Well, how were you feeling leading up? Like race day, you're getting ready to get to the start line. This is your first like I guess big finish line since you were in high school doing cross country. So how were you feeling about the experience leading up?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually haven't mentioned this. I did have an injury during my training.
Okay.
So while I was running, I was running on trail and just hit a rock wrong and twisted my
Mm,
ankle. So I was worried about that. So going into it, and I definitely went back like way too soon training again. So at that point, I had hurt my foot, which kind of transferred onto like my hip, and I was definitely worried about that. Like, I and also we had run a half marathon like 5 days before.
sure. Oh yeah,
Um,
you did say that. So that was your peak run was like 13.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had just done that, and that definitely messed me up a little bit. And then going into it again with having had that experience and having that impact on my body, and then going into that. So I was definitely worried about that. But I was actually really excited. Like I was just excited to, run with my friends, and I also like the idea of just like, we were almost kind of just hanging out, going for a run together. And it was low key. It was kind of, like as we were training. Um, and I was looking forward to that aspect, that I felt like I didn't really need to push myself super hard. And that we all kind of, were just there to have fun. So that kind of kept me going. And that's why I was mainly just really excited, honestly,
Yeah.
to like you said, the big finish line. I was, I'd never experienced that before. I had never even run a 10K, race. So I was definitely really excited.
Yeah, it's a cool feeling. I mean, bummer about the injury though. That especially for your first race, like that can. I'm sure you were just thinking like, what do I even do with this information? Like,
Yeah.
this has never happened before.
Yeah.
Um, but were you able to like leading up to the start line? Were you able to kind of like put that to the side and enjoy the experience, or was that something that lingered throughout the race for you?
Definitely, I was enjoying it mostly, but I will say it did linger towards the end. Like
Mhm.
once it hit around 10 miles, that's when the pain like really started to hit. And but then it's, you have 3 miles left, so you're just like, okay, I've run like, 5K before, so I can do it. Um, but it did linger throughout, and I had to take an ibuprofen at some point just to get myself going or keep myself going. um so yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
It does, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just was kind of curious because, like, I just recently went through an injury myself. I know a couple people I've interviewed recently went through an injury themselves for
Mhm.
their marathons, and it's like, yeah, it rocks you a little bit, and it's even
Oh
tougher
yeah.
when you're going through it during the race because it can really like the of course the injury can take you out of the race, but the mental part of it of like letting it really seep
Oh
in
yeah.
and really take over that can be really tough. So that's all I was asking was like, yeah, did it?
Oh yeah.
What were you able to still enjoy the experience even though you had something like that going
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, I did. Like, yeah, that's a good way to put it earlier, to that how you said it. I did put it aside a little bit, but it became more apparent and seeped more into my mental, aspects at around 10 mile 10.
Yeah. Yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense. Was there anything that you were saying to yourself during that time to like keep yourself going, or were you relying on the people around you? Like, how did you keep yourself pushing forward when it got really hard there at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I just told myself I can do it. Like, I've done it before. I run a 5K. I just have to figure out, like, I just focused on that. It's like only a 5K, you only have to run that. And I knew I could do that. And then I did rely on my friend. Um it was four of us who ran the half, and it was me, my friend, and then the two guys that we kind of ran ahead for. So we're like, okay, we're gonna beat the guys. we're gonna keep going and focus on that, and that also drove me forward. And my friend is a great person to run with because she has that like drive, that race drive. So that was really helpful that we kept each other. We were competitive with each other.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Cool. What was the finish line like? That was like you said, that was your first big finish line. So what was the feeling like? Were you immediately? I feel like people fall into like a couple categories with finish lines. It's like, let me do
Mhm.
that again. That was the most amazing thing ever. Or it's like
Yeah.
that was a lot. Give me a second.
Yeah.
How was the experience for you?
Oh, it was lovely. Yeah. And my family had come out too. My brother actually followed us with his bike because it was local, so he could do that.
Cool.
And so he waited for us at the finish line, and my sister and boyfriend as well. And it was just exciting. There were so many people, and then you just get like all this stuff. You can finally eat something, and
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm done now. And then you get your medal, you take some pictures, and you kind of just forget that you just ran something really hard and celebrate. So it definitely was just like happy feelings. Yeah.
Cool. Do you feel like you caught the like distance bug
Oh,
then, or
100%.
yeah?
100%. I was like, because I know that you ran the Wilmington
Yeah.
marathon, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and that's in February, and we had run in December, and I was like,
Mm.
I'm definitely gonna run in Wilmington in February, and that was a delusional idea, but yeah, I was like, I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah. Were you thinking that like you were gonna run the half in Wilmington, or were you thinking full? Like, where did you go straight to the the full, or did you think you were gonna run some more
No,
halves?
not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, the half. I was like, I love that distance. And I'm still interested in actually doing a trail half as well,
Cool.
which they have in the area here as well. But yeah, I was like, I love this. And then my friend was like, we should look at marathons too. But so that's where we definitely caught the bug for sure.
Cool. I love it. Well, yeah. Where do we progress from there? Like, how I know obviously you've ran that was your half marathon. You ran a marathon as well. So, how
Mhm.
did we get from running your first half to running your first marathon?
Yeah. So like I said, the half was in December, and then the full was in November of the next year, so almost a year apart. And then I did have that injury that took me back. from just really taking a break after the half in
Hmm.
December. I really didn't run much at all during that time. I focused on just getting that better. And because I was like, no, I'm gonna try running. I feel like every runner has probably done that. Like, no, I'm gonna run through my injury, kind of test it.
Yeah.
and and that's what I did as well. And then it kind of just transferred to other parts of my body, like in my hip and then my shins. And I was like, okay, I think I need to just actually take a second. Um, and then I didn't run for a while. And then the summer hit, and I mean, the North Carolina summers,
Oh my
they're
God, yeah.
so
Brutal.
hot. And I was like, I really cannot run in the heat. Like, that's something I'm just terrible at. I ran a few 5Ks probably in June and through the heat. And that's when I was like, no, I just really can't do that. It was like the first time I had ever had to walk in a race as
Yeah.
well, because I just couldn't keep going. So I just feel like you can't breathe. And so I barely also ran in the summer.
Yeah.
If anything, I did it like on a treadmill or something like that. And so a lot of time passed with me not really running much. And then part of it was also that we were working at the restaurant, like as a manager, I had to be there for 50 hours a week. And
Oh,
so
wow.
on that one day on Monday, when we had time off, I was like, am I really going to run a lot now?
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a
Um,
lot of hours.
yeah. So, and it's also you're constantly on your feet. Um, and then I can't remember exactly. I guess it kind of the heat dies down in probably August, something
Yeah,
like
like
that.
in August. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I did go on a trip in August for 2 weeks, and then I was back, and it was the beginning of September. And I was like, okay, I have the marathon to run in 2 months.
Yeah.
um, and that's when I just really like started. So I picked up the running again. I did run a few times on my trip. Um, but more like 10Ks and things like that, getting back up to sort of a high mileage. And I also then started to do, more around like then 8 miles, 10 miles, um, just to try it as well. I did a lot of just trial and error and see how I felt. And then when it got cooler, probably like not until the beginning of November,
Hmm.
that's when I really started doing like the long runs. So overall, I would say I really didn't train that much, unfortunately. Um, but that's when I just really told myself the mental game is going to be like what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what I stuck with. I really prepared myself mentally a lot, because I couldn't physically as much as anymore because I ran out of time.
Yeah. 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 No, that makes sense. How was your injury feeling at that point? Like, good? You felt like it wasn't a problem or still lingering?
hmm Yeah, it was somewhat still lingering. I didn't feel it much, but when I got to the high mileage, I could still feel it.
Hmm.
I did then do some like exercises to kind of strengthen my foot, and that really helped out. And so, probably not until the marathon, I felt like I could really run pain free.
Couple of weeks leading up, or I guess not even a couple of weeks leading up, when you started your training officially. So when you were through summer and you started training, were you following a plan, or what plan, if not like a physical plan, did you have in your mind to like ramp up mileage up to a certain like peak point?
Yeah, I kind of just followed what felt good for my body. I felt like it wasn't going to be really good for me to all of a sudden go into like 15 miles. I knew that I kind of still had to start like, like you would at a beginning of a plan. Um, and I didn't follow anything specific. I followed a few exercises also. Um, from some people online that involve strength training as well. And I've done that a lot in the past as well. So I focused on getting also my cardio up. I was biking a lot, doing exercises that involved, going from strength training between cardio. So that's also what I needed to focus on to just get my body strong and have that balance. So that's what I focused on to kind of get my body to be ready for high impact.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. That's something I learned from my last injury too. Is like how much you can, if you are going through something, or you have like you have to condense your training block for any reason. Like how much strength training and cross training can really make up for the miles that you're not running.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
like I love that you were doing some mental prep too, because like half the battle is mental. So being able to just
absolutely.
prepare the mind is super helpful too. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that you were doing those things that it could supplement some of the miles that you were probably missing
Hmm.
there. So that's great. And then where did you hit your peak? Like what was your longest run that you ran before the marathon?
So it was 12 and a half miles.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
not much at all. And that was the week before the marathon.
Okay.
Um, so I didn't really do any kind of taper, but I felt like it wasn't really that necessary because I hadn't like super overdone it. I was just kind of like being consistent. And I also use those long runs to try out nutrition and things like that.
Hmm.
And that's why I really like wanted to do like the sort of long runs as well, at least, without doing what I did for the half, running a half like 5 days before. So I wanted to keep my body like still strong, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. For nutrition, were you trying out like gels on your runs,
Mhm.
chews? Like what were some of the things that you were trying out that you ended up liking, not liking?
Yeah, I did try gels and chews, and I tried like the Huma because I did like what I was looking for something kind of more natural.
Hmm.
But it just like did not work. I it was just not good for me. And so then I went to the goos and I tried to find like just a flavor that I could handle. I
Yeah.
ended up, sticking with strawberry kiwi. And I found that out on that last run. So if I wouldn't have tried that, then I don't know what I would have done that because that was the only gels that I took, that only flavor.
Yeah.
And then I also took the goo gummies. Um, the orange flavor was my favorite.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I guess goo, at least they have a lot of flavors. The texture is always a little bit like, but at least they have a lot of
Yeah,
flavors you can try, I
yeah,
guess. Yeah,
exactly.
cool. Okay, sweet. So you had everything in place. Week leading up to the race, obviously you ran the marathon in Charlotte, so you didn't have too many race logistics, I would imagine,
Mhm.
for that one. Talk to us about the how you were feeling like the night before, leading up to the start line. Like, how were you feeling?
Yeah. So the night before, I really I made sure that I had that night off. Um, so I only worked in the morning, and then I had just a plan to just mentally prep. I went to the expo to pick up our packet. Um, and even just there, I was like, okay, I think I was sort of experiencing some kind of weird pain in my calves. So I was like,
Mhm.
oh no. But then, there's like all these vendors, and I ended up buying some socks because I didn't have any like gear like that. But it was the features socks, and they were just so great. So I'm really
Yeah,
glad I had got those. So I prepared myself. Like I got that. It was something, a little special for the run, for the marathon. And so that was fun, and you feel like the energy then already. So I was just like super excited, and it was cool to see everybody, get their marathon bibs, and I'm like, okay, we're all going to do this together.
yeah.
So that really got me excited. And then I went home, and I actually, one of my mom's friends, she runs Ironmans, and she had also run the Charlotte Marathon a few times. So I actually reached out to her, and she had like a lot of tips, which was super helpful, especially also nutrition leading up like the few days before. So I made myself a super carb rich dinner, um, and um, went over to my parents' house the night before too to just kind of talk about it because they all came out, and they created a playlist for me. Like I asked
Oh,
them just
cute.
put some songs here so I can listen to them. That's like a surprise aspect for the run as well.
Yeah,
So we talked about that. And so it really just set me up nicely just to calm down and just like embrace what I'm about to do. So that's what I did the night before.
cool. And you were running this. This is with your friend, right? You were meeting up with
Yeah.
her, and okay, cool. And were you guys around the same pace? So you guys were going to run together the whole time. That was the plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweet.
We started and finished together.
Awesome. I love that.
Mhm.
Cool. So yeah, talk to us about race morning. So I imagine you met up with her at some point in the morning. Did you get there early? Did you have some time to stretch? Like, what was it like getting to the start line?
Yeah, so the race started at 7:20, so I knew I wanted to be early. Like I'm pretty sure I got up at like 5, even though the drive is like 25 minutes
I do the same thing. I'm
from
up at
here.
like 4 in the morning for no reason, just like sitting.
Yeah,
like, yeah,
exactly. But I also had the theory of like, okay, I need to get some food in at 5 in the morning so my stomach has time to digest and like,
sure.
you know, do all that. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get that in early to also just wake up, and I wanted to avoid waking up and then immediately running a marathon. So I did get there early, and parking uptown is also sometimes a little bit of a struggle. So we were figuring out logistics if we wanted to park outside the city and then take the light rail in. Um, but we ended up just driving straight into the city, and we found parking fine. So I was probably there at the race line already at like 6, like super early. Like I was going to use the bathroom and I was the first person to use the toilet paper. Like you can see, it
That's
was
the
like
move,
not
though.
even unwrapped. So I was there like super early, and my parents and my brother and his girlfriend and my sister, they came around probably 6:45, and my friend is notorious for running late. She came right at 7:20.
She
So
rolls up to the start line.
yep. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, oh no, is she gonna be on time? And so she was on time, so that was good because that was kind of making me a bit anxious, but I knew she was gonna be there. Like we had trained together and just worked up together for this. So yeah, I was really early. I did get some stretches in, random stuff. You see people around you doing stretches. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try that. Um,
Today,
and
for a day of the race, you're like, "Ah, that looks like a good
yeah, I
idea."
mean, they're all things that I've done before, but I was like,
Yeah, yeah,
that looks good for running purposes.
yeah, yeah,
Because I was waiting, and it was cold. It was
yeah.
middle
You
of
got to keep moving.
November, so I did keep moving, even just like running on place, like in the line to the bathroom, like just got to keep moving. So that's what I did right before and also it was nice when my family came, and my sister like did my hair, so that was cute to have that little like gift from her to support.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, that was fun.
I love that. Cool. So vibes were good. Lead up to the start line. We get to the start line. Your friend rolls up, ready to rock,
Yeah,
and we start. Walk us
yeah,
through the experience from there. What was the first? Let's just say like first half. What was the first half
yeah.
like for you?
It was super fun. Like there were so many people. It was actually record number for Charlotte Marathon that year. I want to say it was close to 10,000.
Oh
Like
wow, yeah,
a lot of
big,
people for like Charlotte.
yeah,
Um, and so the crowds were amazing, and you're running with so many people in the beginning. Like everybody starting. They also were doing 5K and 10Ks as well, so there were a lot of people. Um, So it was just fun. I remember at like mile 2, somebody was next to me and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're running a 9.5 minute mile," and I was like, "Okay, I gotta slow down." I was like,
yeah,
I'm way too excited about this." Um, so I was like, "Okay, no, no, we gotta like separate a little bit from the fast people." Um, and because there was a 6-hour time cap, and I just wanted to get under that, but um, I had no like I needed to be slow. I knew that. So we dialed it back. We got to 3 miles, and I was like, we're already at 3 miles. This is crazy. Like, we're just, hanging out, enjoying the people. Um, and and my family was there too. They kind of followed my location and then drove to some specific spots. And my brother does photography, so he was also there taking pictures.
cool.
So that was fun. He unfortunately couldn't take his bike this time, but um yeah, and then let's see. I remember we took like a little video around mile 9. We're like, okay, now it's almost getting double digits. And we were both still feeling good, and but then you're thinking, oh my gosh, I gotta do this like
Yeah,
twice more and a
yeah.
little bit more than that. And we're like, okay. And then I remember around mile 10, my friend just like all of a sudden got super emotional. She was like,
Oh.
I'm so happy that we're doing this together, and we work so hard, and I'm just happy that we're friends that like run together, and that just made the experience like just so much more special to really just show we're in this together, and we're just thankful that we have each other to go through with this. um and so that was around 10 miles, and um then you kind of see the half marathon people fork off a little bit. The Charlotte Marathon is like a figure eight. So you first go south Charlotte and do like your 13 miles there, and then you go back into uptown where then the half marathoners finish. So you're there where the finish line is.
It's always
and
the worst.
and we're like, okay. And my friend was like, I don't know if I want to do another half of this. And I was like, no, we have to do this. And around mile 10, where it kind of started to get a little bit, you started feeling it.
Yeah.
That's when I put on my parents' playlist as well, or my family's playlist. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love all these songs. This is super cool. And that carried me through until, I mean, for a long time. But, that halfway point where you're like, oh my gosh, I want to, be one of those kind of, they're already finished, wow. Um,
Yeah.
and and then you're also partially going along the route where you're going to come back. So all of these super fast people were like already finishing, and you're like, wow. But yeah, so that was kind of the first half. Towards the end of the first half, we put our headphones in. We had just like chatted up until that point, and kind of got ourselves moving that way, kind of locked in individually. So yeah, that was the first half.
Yeah. I love that you had that moment with your friend, though. I
It
bet
was
that helped a lot. Like, just recenter you guys and just be like,
yeah,
however this ends up, like, we're doing this together, and that's enough of the
yeah,
experience, like, in itself. I think
yeah.
that's
It was
great.
super cute.
Super sweet. Cool. Well, yeah. Where did we go from there? You said that you guys locked in a little bit. How many miles do you feel like you went, like, internal listening to headphones and just like locked in?
Probably around 5 at least,
Okay.
5, 6 miles. When you get out of uptown towards the north, that was the area where also the restaurant is where I worked at. So I was
Mm,
actually really excited to pass by there because the people that were working there were also tracking us, and we're gonna come out and just support for the seconds we're passing by. Um, and at that point, also, I was running the most I'd ever run like in my life. Once I
yeah.
hit like past 13 miles, and that also really drove me. And the restaurant was about a mile 16. So I went through that, and my friend also kind of went ahead of me. We both locked in, and she kind of locked in a little bit faster than me. um, and so between, I want to say 16 and like 21, we had like our own little moments, which was nice, but we like had each other's location, and she was like, okay, and we passed back the restaurant on the way back too. So she was like, I'm gonna wait there for you. And she had like some tofu and a beer.
Oh my
um,
gosh.
yeah, it's a vegan restaurant. She was like, I just want like tofu, like protein and a little
Oh my
snack
god.
and like a
What a
beer.
hero. Just
I
like
know.
taking a quick pit stop. I'm happy to do a
Yeah,
marathon.
right. And I ended up doing that too with them. So I got
Love
there,
that.
and it was like a personal like secret aid station for us.
Yeah.
Like our boss brought out some water and like beer and tofu. I definitely couldn't stomach like tofu or beer at that moment. So, but it was nice that she waited for me. And then at that
Yeah.
point, you're at mile 22, and then we just finished together. And from that point on, my friend was also just super funny. She was like a little tipsy and just like having a good time. And so that, we just kind of kept going that way. There were some tough hills towards the end, like I've right at mile 25. You're like, okay, great. I'm
Good
already,
timing.
yeah, my legs are barely going and the hill's not helping, but that's when it's helpful to have somebody run with. And there was also an aid station along that hill. So a lot of people walked through it. And then there were people there to support you too. So that was nice.
That's super nice. I love that. I love that you got your own little like aid station halfway through
Mhm.
too. Where did you? I mean, it doesn't sound like you really hit the wall. Do you feel like you had any points where you felt that like mental wall? After I know you said at mile 13 it was tough to see like the half marathoners, but do you
Mhm.
feel like you hit that stereotypical like wall that most people hit between I would say like 18 and 20 something?
I actually really don't think so,
That's great.
surprisingly.
Yeah.
I really didn't expect that. I think it really was all of the people. Just everybody came out. And I was also just so thankful. Like, you're thinking, okay, most of the people are going to stop at the halfway point. Are people really going to be cheering the second half? But there were so many people. And then there was also people that we knew that were cheering for us, at mile 16, at mile 22. And we were also running through the parts that we had trained for the half marathon around the restaurant. So it was nice to be in an area that Yeah, it was not really, honestly. So good because at the points where I feel like it might hit people from what I've heard from others, I just had that thought of my people are going to be there.
Yeah.
So
That's why I think it's so important to like strategically, if you can, obviously, if you have like enough crowd support, but like if you can strategically place people, your loved ones along the route where
yeah,
you know that
yeah.
you're gonna struggle or you know where other people have struggled. I think that that's so helpful. I didn't do
Hmm.
that for my first marathon. I kind of tried to like I you don't know for your first, so told my parents like if you're right around here, I think this is where I'm gonna struggle. But for my second marathon, I knew exactly. I was like, I need somebody here and here and here.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it
We do that
helps so
too.
much. Yeah, just to, like have something to
Yeah.
look forward to for sure.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
cool. And then finish line. So this was the we had your big finish line finish for your half marathon, but this is like a whole other experience. And with Charlotte, it sounds like it was like more than double the amount of people. So what was it like crossing the finish line? What was it like doing it with your friend? Like what feelings did you get to go
Mhm.
through with that?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, you're also running through uptown where there's skyscrapers and stuff. You're just like it's like a just really cool environment. And when we crossed the finish line, they actually said our names. So that was just crazy to hear, you know, Teresa's like just, it was welcoming to be like, oh my God, you're celebrated. And I definitely did get emotional afterwards. Like I definitely teared up. I was like, I can't believe I just did that. And especially with like little to no training running like long distance. And my family was there and my boyfriend's like, you're like the coolest person I know. Like I can't believe you did that. And my mom was like, I can't, like, you keep surprising me, because both of them at the at the start line, they were like, you don't have to run the whole thing. Like,
Like it's not too late.
yeah, like especially my mom was like, don't hurt your body. So
So
like
sweet.
stop when it hurts. But like I finished and they're like, oh my God, that's crazy. And this was like super huge coincidence, but my friend's dad had somehow found my parents, like by coincidence. They just like talked to each other at the finish line and like, oh yeah, my daughter's running, with a
Stop.
friend.
That's
And they're
so
like,
funny.
oh, my daughter's also running with a friend. So
No way.
both of our families were there together. So we both got to celebrate immediately.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
and we hadn't even gotten out of like the finish line area yet, and they were there, and we just like stopped for them and had that moment, and they were like, okay, I think we have to like keep walking. And then you got the medal and stuff. And I definitely, like, I have done a lot of research, and people were like, do not sit down after, like, your legs are gonna lock up.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, I just have to keep going, and just like stood. But then after a while, you're kind of like, okay, now it's coming. Like, you're kind of, wobbly, and then you have to walk to your car, and you're like, I cannot move anymore. But it was overall just amazing.
That's great. I love it. Cool. I love
Mhm.
marathon stories where we don't have any like real hiccups and we get to just like have the magical,
Very
like
exciting.
amazing feeling that a marathon provides. So that's amazing. I love that.
Mhm.
Cool. And I always like to ask, like, especially for somebody who didn't have the most quote unquote, and I don't mean this in like a negative way, but like the most ideal training block. I always
Right.
like to
Yeah,
ask,
of
like,
course.
what do you feel like if you could go back and do the experience again, or even if you're planning on doing it again in the near future, like what are some things that you wish you would have done differently from the experience?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely planning to do the Charlotte again this year.
Cool.
I like I said, I just loved it. It was great that it was local, but it was also a big race. And I'm gonna actually train for it this time. Um, and I wanna, find some plan that I think I can like stick with and, actually challenge myself. I love challenging myself just in general, especially when it comes to exercise. So, because at first I was like a little bit afraid of the tempo runs and all of that, but this time I want to see how I can improve my time too. I was really happy with my time, but I definitely want to get faster, especially because I didn't really train much. I want to see how much I can improve if I actually do and have that consistency. So that's what I definitely would have wanted to train more leading up. And probably going back even further from the injury for the half, I wish I would have paid better attention to that. Be, more careful in general, to listen to my body more. So I wish I would have figured that out sooner.
Yeah, it's a weird thing with your body when you first start running. I feel like you have to like this is gonna
Yeah,
sound probably super weird, but like you have to kind of build trust in your body in like a completely different way. Like trusting
100%.
that you an injury is not just like a running pain because you're new, like there we can convince ourselves so much that like oh my ankle feels weird today. That's normal. That's just like a normal running pain. But I think maturing as a runner is realizing that there is pain that's not just like running pain and that we actually should
Yeah,
take it serious.
absolutely. You're right.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I love that. And then I always love to ask for a piece of advice as well. If somebody was in, your shoes just a few months ago, or a year ago, I guess, running their first marathon, what advice would you offer somebody like that?
Yeah. I think that mentally it's so important to prep yourself for that as well. Like for me, it became 100% a mental game. And I think if you really want it, you can do it. I really just, wanted to prove it to myself that I could. And I think anybody who has that goal should really go for it if you want to. Like if that's on your bucket list, I highly recommend, going for it and putting mind over matter. It's so important for anything, but it was especially for a big challenge like this that is what kept me through for sure, and that's what I would recommend for others as well.
Cool. I love it. That's great. All right. Well, just to wrap us up here, we are going to do an extended episode like normal. So we're going to keep the cameras rolling after we wrap up here for an extra couple
Mhm.
minutes. If you want to see some of that content, you can go to myfirstmarathonpodcast.com/exclusive. But now to the fun questions about fuel and shoes. We already kind of talked a little bit about some of your fuel favorites, but
Mhm.
what are some things that you ended up liking? I know the goo has that changed? Is there anything else that you've liked for nutrition since the race?
Yeah, so for the race, I really knew that I needed like a variety, and I did a bunch of research about really how to fuel within the marathon. Um, and I was also drinking like electrolytes, and then you also passing the aid station where you have that option. But I knew that I had to think about that as well. Sometimes I think I never thought about, that has, energy as well.
Yeah.
And so I needed the variety of not taking too many gels and then also the variety of like texture because I didn't want to just do like, gels aren't great,
Yeah.
um
Nope. Nobody
yeah,
loves the gel.
nobody loves them. Unfortunately, they did do the trick for me, or I guess fortunately.
Yeah.
But so then I also had the goo gummies. So I went from gummies to gels probably every like 30, 45 minutes. And also from that, my mom's friend who runs Ironmans, she told me to do it early.
Yeah.
And that was so important. She was like, if you get hungry, like it's kind of bad. So you I had that. So that was my plan. Then throughout the marathon, after like towards the last half, people started offering like bananas and stuff. And I was like, okay, I know that I probably shouldn't try something new, but I did, and that also really helped to have like something natural
Yeah.
and familiar as well.
Yeah. Cool. I should have said this before, but like trial and error is really your best friend with nutrition. So definitely recommend like try like you did for your long runs, like try everything and anything. You never know what flavor is going to hit the right way or what texture is going to
100%.
be right for you. So just
hmm
try everything. I think that's the most important.
hmm
But cool. And then shoes, same thing for shoes. Disclaimer: get your feet measured. Shoes are so individual. But for you, what have you liked for shoes?
Yeah, so I did run the marathon in Asics, the gel Asics. I can't remember which model exactly,
Mm-hmm.
but those were great. Like they carried me through without any blisters or anything. They're also the same shoe I ran the half marathon in, so I really enjoyed that. I did find that towards the end of the life of the shoe, I really felt like the arch support wasn't as good anymore, and that's why I wanted to find like a stability shoe, kind of focus on like a specific feature in general. So I ended up with the Saucony guides, which are a little bit of a lighter shoe as well, which is nice. They still have that same cushion than the Asics did, but it's cool to try a lighter shoe. So I do really like those, and they helped. It gave like a fresh start because those Asics had like over 400 miles on them.
Yeah.
So it was nice to find something new. So I do really like those two. I don't think they're like gonna be my it shoe. I definitely want to try some more, but those are the ones that I have made positive experiences with.
Cool. Love those. Great.
Mhm.
Well, thanks again for walking us through your story. Super excited. Do you have any races coming up before you run Charlotte? Anything that you're planning before the marathon?
I definitely want to do some more 5Ks, here and there. I also wasn't sure if I was going to actually do the Charlotte Marathon because it is, the same thing. And I love that when you're, and I hadn't actually seen much of South Charlotte, so it was cool to see something new. So my friend and I were like, maybe we can run something else, but also it was nice to have a family there. So we were going to find a half marathon, maybe somewhere else, like a destination half marathon.
Cool.
Anybody know something cool, let me know.
There's so
um
many good ones.
exactly. So even like have a little girls weekend and just like throw a half marathon in there. So that's something we're looking for, but we haven't settled on something because like you said, there are so many.
Yeah. Amazing. Cool. And you're gonna run your next full marathon with your friend as well? Same friend?
I hope so.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that you guys any story where you have like a partner to train with or to like go through the experience with, especially for your first one, I think is so special. It's like it's a bonding experience for sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thank you again. Excited for everything that's coming up next for you. We're going to keep the cameras rolling for a couple more minutes, but for our
Perfect.
regular listeners, where can they find you if they want to follow you as well?
Okay, yeah. Well, I don't have a like specific running account, but I am on Instagram for just Theresa.Dornburg. I did post a little bit about my marathon experience there, and I do hope to post more leading up to my next one,
Sweet.
to keep myself also accountable to train more.
Awesome. Love it. I'll make sure to link it in the show notes too, but thank you so much. I
Awesome.
appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the My First Marathon podcast. For more stories, tips, and resources, head to myfirstmarathonpodcast.com. And if you want access to bonus episodes, exclusive resources, and extra support for your training, make sure you check out the community at myfirstmarathonpodcast.com/exclusives. You can also follow along with us on socials, Instagram and TikTok. That's at My First Marathon Pod. If you want to follow along with my personal journey, that's at tay.says. Whether you're training, recovering, or just thinking about signing up, you belong here. I'm so excited that you're here, and we'll see you on the next one.